The United States intelligence community consists of 17 intelligence agencies that work together and separately in order to try to discover the secrets of our enemies and in some cases of our friends, as well as try to prevent sensitive information that America holds from getting into the hands of our enemies. Now, the agencies themselves conduct activities that are both covert, meaning secret, and overt, meaning openly known. In fact, most activities are overt activities, and they consist of the analysis of open sources, everything from newspapers to the internet to the interviewing of refugees, sources that are accessible to everyone without the need for clearance. And the analysis of such sources is, in fact, the bulk of what intelligence agency analysts do. Intelligence community employs approximately 854,000 people. This is a most recent estimate by Washington Post. The exact number isn't disclosed. The budget in 2016, once again, it's secret, but we have good estimates of the intelligence agency's budgets, was about $67 billion. Typically, 70% of the budget goes to private contractors for technology services, because it takes a lot in the 21st century to build and maintain sensitive equipment that facilitates espionage. Individual agency budgets are not made public. Central Intelligence Agency is the one that is probably the most notorious, even though most of what it does is actually analysis of open sources. The forerunner of the Central Intelligence Agency was the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, that was formed during the Second World War. The Office of Strategic Services was disbanded after the war, and in 1947 was reconstituted as by the National Security Act as the Central Intelligence Agency. So what does it actually do? It collects information on foreign governments, corporations, individuals, and it provides advice to policymakers, including to President. For example, the CIA prepares daily briefings for President of the United States. The director of the CIA, who is appointed by President, reports directly to President. Now, the CIA did have a hand in undermining and overthrowing foreign governments, so it does engage in covert activities as well. In 1953, the CIA played a relatively minor role in overthrowing the government of Iran. It was joined by the MI6, the British Foreign Intelligence, and it incited protests and demonstrations against the democratically elected government of Iran of Mohammad Mossadegh, overthrowing him because Mossadegh was becoming friendly with the communist world, and there was fear that the United States would lose its listening posts on the Caspian Sea near the Soviet border. So in order to preserve that, the United States overthrew him, but also Mossadegh nationalized the Anglo-Iranian oil company. And when you nationalize a private company, you give money to the shareholders, private shareholders, and then you take over the company and you run it ostensibly for the benefit of the people. So government control replaces private control, but in this particular case, most of the ownership belonged to foreigners. So in order to protect the stake, the British stake and the stake of other foreign nationals in the Anglo-Iranian oil company, the United States, through the CIA, and Great Britain, through MI6, undermined and had a hand in overthrowing Mossadegh. In 1954, the United States trained Guatemalan exiles and then dropped Guatemalan exiles in Guatemala, and they overthrew the democratically elected government of Arbenz Guzman. So that was 1954, because Arbenz Guzman nationalized the possessions of the United Fruit Company, back then later known as Chiquita Banana. The United States wanted to preserve its economic interests abroad. In 1973, the CIA undermined and helped to overthrow the government, democratically elected government, once again, of Salvador Allende, because he was moving closer to the communist world. And so the pattern has been the same. The CIA tended to overthrow governments when it feared that those governments were getting friendly with the Soviet Union, and or when those governments were expropriating foreign companies. Now, 8 different intelligence agencies are located within the Department of Defense. That is to say, they're militarily oriented. Each branch of the military has its own intelligence agency: the Air Force, the Army, the Marines, and the National Guard. So they have their own intelligence agencies. And then you have some intelligence agencies within the Department of Defense that are not attached to any branch. For example, the Defense Intelligence Agency is an all-source or all-purpose military intelligence agency, providing authoritative assessments of foreign military intentions and capabilities to American military commanders and civilian policymakers. In other words, how many tanks does the enemy have? How many airplanes? What are their positions? How easily can we defeat them given a particular terrain, etc., etc. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency operates based on the idea that satellite reconnaissance and high-flying aircraft reconnaissance is invaluable in terms of getting the proper perspective to protect things for certain things. For example, massive gatherings like the Summer Olympics, World Cup soccer, that require enormous logistical operations of great complexity. When you want to survey from a distance, how you can best secure a very vast, geographically vast location so that it is less susceptible to terrorist attacks. What are the means of escape for people from stadiums and hotels, for example? Also, aerial reconnaissance by satellites and high-flying aircraft can provide invaluable espionage information on the capabilities, military capabilities of foreign countries. The National Security Agency is the one that I would dare say became the most notorious one in recent years, particularly after the revelations of the defector Edward Snowden, an American who fled to Russia and betrayed NSA's secret programs. This agency itself was founded in 1952, and at first, because of its extreme secrecy, people joked that it should be called no such agency, because the agency at first denied its very own existence. But what it does is actually easy to understand. What it actually does is code breaking and encryption. It tries to break the complex codes of foreign countries so that we could spy on them and determine what it is that they're thinking and what it is they're planning to do. And encryption is the opposite. You're trying to create a code for your own country so that the enemies can't pick up on that. Now, it employs a very large number of mathematicians, and it uses a very significant number of supercomputers in order to accomplish its goals. In conjunction with sister agencies in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the Security Agency has been able already by the 1990s to monitor the entire electronic traffic, which included the internet, phone calls, and faxes. So when programs like PRISM came to light in the 2000s, this was not a surprise to people who followed the NSA, at least in a cursory fashion. So NSA's ability to spy on everyone from a technical point of view is nothing new. What has really been new in recent years, and what created controversy, is the fact that NSA has actually spied without a warrant, and just how much data it has been collecting on the United States citizens. And also because the director of the NSA, James Clapper, in fact publicly denied before Congress that the NSA was collecting bulk data on basically all American citizens. So they were saying, we're not monitoring all the content that takes place. We're not monitoring what you're saying to other people without a warrant, but we are in fact collecting bulk data on everyone. And James Clapper said, no, that's not happening, not wittingly. We're not doing it intentionally. Well, then it turned out the NSA was in fact doing it quite intentionally. So this created a lot of controversy.